to you. Good morning, good morning to good morning, good morning. Won't you share with a friend or two? Good morning, good morning to you, and many more, and many more, and many more. Good morning, good morning, and welcome to Daring Dialogues. This is the final episode for season 18, and I am your host today, Shantae Charles. It is Monday Motivation. It is Black Table Talk again. It is all things Black people, Black polity, Black wealth, Black faith practices, all of those different things. And I don't necessarily have a book that I'm going to be reading to you today. We are going to end our broadcast a little bit early today because I do have another appointment to get to. But I am going to do what I've been doing, which is speaking from my heart. And over the last weekend, we know that it is and has been 4th of July weekend and the celebration of the 250th anniversary um, of America's founding. And we know historians will tell you that July 4th was not the exact date, but that is the date that the consensus was built around and decided upon. So July 4th, 1776 becomes the official nation's birthday. Now, I'm going to talk about a lot of things that happened over this past week. And I'm saying them because if you don't hear from me in August, if this is the last broadcast that you watch, I want you to be very, very clear about what it is that is happening in our country. I want you to be very clear about how I feel about those things that are happening in our country. And again, if you never watch another broadcast, so be it. It's good. It's okay. It's copacetic, right? So over this weekend, most people saw a lot of the viral videos that showed the um, domestic terrorist group, because that's what they are, um, the hate group, um, the Patriot Front, and some other people, but mainly they were amongst those numbers. About 400 of them, it was reported, that were marching through Capitol Hill. They were not marching through DC, because had they been marching through DC in general, there would have definitely been a different response and reaction. They came through, I believe, Union Station and marched up to Capitol Hill and went to the designated space for uh, the American State Fair, and they did some marching around that space. And that was what a lot of people saw on the videos, as well as them in the station and the iconic image that will probably go down as an iconic representation of America at 250. And that was the image of the Black woman that was sitting in that particular part of the train, with the masked men standing on the rails, some sitting behind her, some sitting in front. The photographer, I believe, name was Cheney Orr, I believe, that took the photograph from Reuters, um, as far as the capture of what occurred. Okay, so that is the general breakdown of the videos that went. viral. Okay. Now I want to talk about what James Baldwin said. James Baldwin said, I definitely don't want to mess up James Baldwin's words. Good morning and good morning and good morning to those of you all who are coming on. I'm going to look up his exact quote because I feel like I feel like this needs to be reiterated to this country. And he said, I am not a nigger. Now, I know because I use that word, it's probably going to put this video in a different kind of algorithm. And I'm okay with that. He said, if I'm not a nigger and you invented him, you, the white people, invented him, then you've got to find out why. You've got to find out why. Why did you need to invent this caricature of blackness? Why did you need to dehumanize us, to frame us in contrast or in comparison to your own humanity? And you are the ones who have to find out why. We don't have to find out why because we know we're not that. But if that's what you invented, he said, you've got to find out why. And he said, and the future of America will rest upon that. And the future of America will rest upon that. He said, what white people have to do is to try to find out in their own hearts, because we can't do that work for you. You've got to find out in your own heart why it was necessary to have a nigger in the first place. He said, because I'm not that, I'm a man. But if you think that I am that, then that means that you need that identification. You need that identity built. And you've got to find out why. And the future of the country depends on that, whether or not it's able to answer that question. And I was thinking this morning as I was in the mirror today, and I was thinking to myself, that word was an invention to justify the degradation of a people. And then you have nigga, Nigga, which becomes the extraction of something meant to degrade a people. And that gets extracted into, well, I'm going to now willfully do some degrading of myself. Yeah. So I don't use either one of those words to describe myself. It's not the hard ER. It's not the Nigga. And early Black Americans were called Negroes. Now, where does Negroes come from? Some of us have learned and have recognized that on the 1734 maps of Africa, there was, in fact, a whole swath of land that was called Negro land. And people were like, well, how do we get to Negroes? because the map said Negro land. Let me show it to you. Let me show it to you. Let me give you the visual for it. You know, we're a visual people. Let's show you let's show you this map. This was 1734. All right, can you all see that? Can you see that? Let me bring it a little closer. Can you see that? What does that say at the top? Above where it says Guinea, okay? Negro land. The land where you can get some Negroes from. They knew who they were getting. They knew who they were pulling. So I don't have anybody calling me a Negro because Negro land is where they were getting people from. They were pulling from the treasure of Africa, not just the minerals in the ground, but the people that came out of Africa. Oh, and they had it all mapped out. They had it laid out. They could tell you, let's go here. Let's go to the bottom of this same map. They could tell you what was going on in each region. Okay, these people were not ignorant. They were not ignorant of what they were doing. They knew that if they went to certain areas, that was the grain coast. That was your agricultural people. That was the people who knew how to grow things. And then they had another section mapped out as the Gold Coast. They knew that those were your extracting of minerals, but also your metal workers, those people who knew how to work with the metals and iron. Then they had the Slave Coast. And next to the Slave Coast, they had Benin. So don't let anybody make you believe that these people did not know who and what they were after, and who and what they were going for, and who could do what, and who had expertise in what, and why, and where. They weren't just randomly scooping up black people. They weren't randomly scooping up Negroes. And so it's never an issue for me if somebody says, look at that Negro, because Negro land was a thing. It was the land of the Negroes. It was the land that they could extract resources and precious people from. So I don't ever get upset with that. Okay. And then you have in the 70s, black people began to really hone in, because some of these words are early 1600s, early 1700s, depending on the source that you are reading from. Some people are using African, some people are using Negro. We know the invention of the Nigger, okay? And then there's some more self identification as black. And so, again, black is never an insult to me. It's never an insult to me. Um, so that's that. Now let me move back into what happened over this weekend. Over this weekend, I began to interact, I'll say interact with lots, hundreds of pseudo supremacists, because it's never supremacy to me. If you're afraid of somebody that you say is less than you, and you're doing all of these things to try to suppress them and restrict them in their life, in their being, you, to me, could never call yourself superior, because your whole premise is based on fear. So it's always supremacy over here. But I got a chance to interact with hundreds of pseudo supremacists on my page, coming to my page. And I'm going to talk about two ideas that they continually presented over and over and over again. And I screenshot some of the comments so that I could provide you with some direct quotes. Okay? Because I don't want anybody to feel like I'm lying on them. Okay? So let's talk a little bit about some of these direct quotes. So one of them, one of the major one was this takeover of this train and this black woman seated amongst these domestic terrorists, because that's what they are. It was the most peaceful takeover that we have ever seen. Notice how she's still alive today. The safest train ride she'll ever have. And yet no one was killed. This is what they kept saying. No one was killed. Okay, yes, she's seated there by herself amongst domestic terrorists, but no one was killed. Why would they threaten her with a camera right there and a reporter? Does that make sense? Obviously not. It doesn't make sense. But white people have convinced themselves that she was safe. Mhm. They said no buildings, Art Gregory said, no buildings were set on fire, no memorials were damaged. They literally rode the subway with a singular black girl on it in the midst of them, and she wasn't yelled at or stabbed. She was probably safer than she has ever been. But you don't have to agree with them. But if you're going to vilify them, do some simple comparisons and see what you find. Well, we did our homework. We did our homework on the Patriot Front. We've been doing our homework on the Patriot Front because they are not a new group. They've been here since about 2017 or long, but they really came to the forefront at the Charlottesville Unite the Right rally when I lived in that region. So before we ran to the internet, you know, and I wish white people had done this, before they ran to the internet to defend an actual domestic terrorist group, you would have thought they would have at least gone to Google and said, who is the Patriot Front? Has the Patriot Front committed acts of violence? Does the Patriot Front have a record of criminality? Has the Patriot Front ever attacked anybody? Has the Patriot Front ever attacked black people? Before they ran to the internet, I mean, these are supposed to be the most superior and brightest people on the planet. This is their declaration. Before they went to the internet, you would have thought they would have done some background on who they were bigging up for not doing harm to people. Joel Gresham says actually they came and marched and they were peaceful and they didn't hurt that little girl. They didn't intentionally scare the little girl. Granted, she probably was scared, but it wasn't intentional. They didn't set anything on fire. They didn't break anything. They didn't block off the road. They didn't impede traffic. So, yeah, it gives a pretty good picture. Someone else, Michael Hamrick, said, it looks like a normal business ride to me. Mind you, you're coming into black spaces to justify the incident. You're coming into black women's spaces in particular, because it wasn't just me, it was all of my black women friends were getting these kinds of comments in their comment section all weekend long. We were being told that we didn't see with our eyes what we saw and to just not worry about it. Kenneth Heaton said she was perfectly safe. No one was injured, no one was harmed. She was safer on that train than in her own neighborhood. Now, what kind of delusion do you have to be under to think that a black woman surrounded by known domestic terrorists is safer with them than she is in her own neighborhood? All right. Douglas Francis said no one was assaulted or harassed. There were no racial slurs. Because can you see racial slurs on a photograph? That must be some new technology. There was no racial slurs, no rioting, no police violence. Why would there be police violence if the police are escorting them? The city wasn't burned and stores looted. I do not agree with their beliefs or ideology, but they have a fundamental right to assemble for a peaceful protest. Just because it doesn't fit the narrative, free speech is free speech. I mean, domestic terrorism is domestic terrorism. Hmm. You can't pick and choose, but honestly, I believe this was entirely staged. That's another comment that kept coming up. This is staged. This is AI. This is Antifa dressing up, trying to make them look bad. They said the movements were too choreographed. There were too many things that don't align with a ragtag group getting together and being so organized together from various places around America. If you understand the Patriot Front, you would know that they are highly organized. You would know that they have one of the best marketing campaigns when it comes to pushing out their message that they believe they are superior. They're actually pretty well known for that. That they have a really good media backing and a media packaging to what it is that they're doing. Eric Van Buren said, "So let's get this straight. They don't walk through DC. They walked in Capitol Hill with the Metro Police, the Capitol Police, the MPD, the military, Secret Service Police, and Park Police assisting them. That's not saying FBI police who are all over. So they did not march through DC proper. They marched through Capitol Hill. And here's what I want to say to that because I wrote it down. Here's what I want to say to all of the She Was Safe people. Yeah, let me get to it. She was safe. I said this comment has been repeated thousands of times in the last 24 hours. And the ones that I read you today were the ones that came up this morning because they're still saying the same thing. Tell me, what about a known domestic terrorist hate group would make you think that this was a moment of safety for that woman? This speaks more to their belief in the inherent criminality of Black people, while the actual group on the train have actually racked up a laundry list of charges. And I'm going to read some of them to you today so you understand who Patriot Front is, because clearly people don't or haven't bothered to know. I'll put it that way. They haven't bothered to know who they are. They have a laundry list of criminal charges and are seen as an official hate organization. Violence, and this is what women seem to understand, violence doesn't have to be verbal or even physical in the moment. If they were getting good press, if they were having reporters follow them around, if they were being escorted by police, why would they have to resort to violence to get their point across? They wouldn't. This is good PR for them. This is exactly how they want themselves to be read by the general white American public. That these are good boys. They're just wearing masks in 107-degree heat. These are good boys. They're just walking. They're just going for a walk. There's nothing harmful about what they're doing. That is the PR. That is the marketing. See? See? They're around Black people and nobody's being harmed. What are you guys talking about? That is some of the best marketing and PR that we have seen in quite a long time. But ethnic intimidation is a thing. I don't presume to know the woman in the picture's mind. There are reports that came out and said that she arrived safely to her destination. Everybody else is saying until I see her being interviewed on television saying she is okay, we do not know that for sure. We don't know that for sure. Okay? Ethnic intimidation is a thing. I do not presume to know that black woman's mind, but what I can say is that the assumption that her ride was safe denies her emotional feeling in the moment, denies her voice in the moment, and denies her own bodily autonomy because only she could tell us what she was feeling in that moment. Only she could tell us her reaction or her non reaction or her visceral reaction in that moment. So I don't presume to speak for that black woman because I'm not in that black woman's body. But the reality is, if you can look at that picture and say, I would feel safe there, then you would probably feel safe with the same ideology, because it is the same ideology, that would lead people to feel safe at a lynching picnic. If you could feel safe there, you would feel safe at a cross burning. If you could feel safe there, you would feel safe at a tiki torch rally. Because maybe that is the point. Maybe that moment was meant to reveal to us how many people feel safe in that space, that it feels right at home, that is just as comfortable, as heartwarming as baseball, hot dogs, and American pie. Maybe that's what the moment was meant to reveal to us. Maybe you wanted to let us know how intimidation warms your heart and makes you feel the coziest. Maybe you wanted us to know that it's heartwarming to you when you see black people in a space where they are outnumbered and they are the only one showing forth their actual humanity while they are surrounded by people who want them to not exist. Because that's the Patriot Front. So you actually revealed your own heart by continuing to come into black spaces and insist that she was perfectly safe, that she was safer there than with other black people who love her, who care about her in her own neighborhood, who watch out for her. That's the message that you all sent to us over the weekend. That you think that black people are so criminal that we would be safer with a known domestic terrorist group than amongst everyday black people. That's the message you guys sent. All right. Let me tell you a little bit about Patriot Front, since a lot of people don't know or willfully have chosen not to know. I'll say it that way. Let's talk a little bit about Patriot Front. I want to give you some background. While there is no single official tally of all crimes committed by members of Patriot Front, they have been tied to hundreds of documented criminal incidents and arrests. So for all the people saying, these are just good boys, they're not going to hurt anybody, they already have. They already have a history, they already have a track record. In June 2022 in Idaho, 31 members from across the United States were arrested in Idaho because they were packed inside of a U-Haul truck with riot shields, shin guards, and a smoke grenade. I mean, just the good old boys. I mean, a smoke grenade is an everyday item that we just carry around, right? 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 Okay. They were charged with conspiracy to riot and disrupt an LGBTQ pride event. At least 27 of these individuals were convicted or took plea deals. The group is known for dozens of acts of property damage across the country. But they didn't damage anything in DC. They didn't damage anything in Capitol Hill. But they're known for dozens of acts of property damage across the country. This is not past, this is present, including defacing murals honoring LGBTQ pride, defacing murals honoring racial justice and Black history. Members have specifically faced criminal charges for vandalizing a mural in Olympia, Washington, for vandalizing a memorial in Richmond, Virginia, honoring the Black tennis legend Arthur Ashe. So they're defacing property. I thought the average white American was against defacing and destroying property or property damage. I thought they were, but they're patting these boys on the back for their good behavior photo op. Assaults. Individual members have been prosecuted for violent altercations, such as the widely reported incident in Boston where members physically attacked a Black man. So, no, they did not attack her in front of a camera. That would not have been conducive to a good PR and marketing campaign about the good old boys in mass. Okay? But the Ku Klux Khaki Boys have a history already. They have documented history already. And this was available at the fingertips of the same people justifying them. And so before you go on to continue to defend a domestic terrorist group, because if you're going to defend them, then you might as well defend Hitler, right? They already have a track record. So now what do we do with that? What do we say to that? How do we feel today on a Monday that 250 years later, we still have people saying that just a little bit, I mean, just a little bit of domestic terrorism isn't going to hurt anybody, at least while the cameras are rolling. But we know there's a point where the terror and the attacks happen, and it plays right into the lineage of America. Because there will be, and there has been a time where the images caught are after the terror has been done, after the terror has fulfilled and found its object of anger. And so, again, like I said, I don't try to understand everything about how that woman might have been feeling. The second argument that's been made is, well, guess who didn't? Guess who didn't arrive home safely? I'm gonna show you those, okay? Because we have to interrogate. We want to interrogate honestly how people feel. All right. Teresa Cotter Judge put this picture up, and she said, "You know what image sticks with me? You know what image sticks with me? This is another image that people kept dropping in my comment section hundreds of times over the weekend. And I said to myself, it's so sad that you all are using this Ukrainian woman's death as a sort of gotcha moment. When if you actually cared about her, you would have been following the case. you would have known that this person was declared criminally insane, mentally insane, and has been unable to stand trial because of mental insanity. You would have known that this was an isolated incident, not an organized domestic terror group that routinely commits crimes in the country. But because, again, in your mind, every black person is a criminal, you thought that pulling this picture out was a gotcha moment. You were comparing a criminally mentally ill person unable to stand trial for a crime that they committed to a group of national domestic terrorists who have committed various crimes: looting, burning, property destruction, monument destruction, and assaults. Unless this comparison only works unless you believe that they too are as criminally insane as this man right here. That's the only way this analogy actually works. Is if you yourself are admitting that the men on the train with the black woman are just as insane and out of their minds as this guy right here. Because that's the comparison you made. You're conflating a mentally ill person who committed a crime with the domestic terrorist men, the group, on a train with one singular black woman. And even if you are equating the two, that should make it even more concerning that she was on there by herself in that train. But you didn't get to that point. You just got to, well, here's what this mentally insane black man did. And they didn't do half of that. But if you go look at their history, they've done quite a bit in various areas across the nation. And so the argument of using that image does not hold up. And if you were going to compare two incidents, let's be clear. If you were going to compare a comparable incident to what happened to the Ukrainian uh, woman, you would have had to pull up Nia Wilson, or maybe you haven't heard of her. Okay? Nia Wilson was stabbed by John Cole on a train in California, and her two sisters watched her bleed out as she tried to keep him safe. So that's a comparable isolated incidences of criminally insane violence against women. That's the comparison. But you didn't make that one. You only just brought out the criminally insane black man to say, see, they're all criminally insane. And so, white people, this is why some black people don't take y'all seriously. This is why we don't take you seriously sometimes. So, I'm going to end with this. I'm going to end with James Baldwin. A couple of quotes from him. He said, "You've got to tell the world how to treat you. If the world tells you how you're going to be treated, you are in trouble. In order to have a conversation with someone, you must reveal yourself." And I ask the question, can you reveal yourself without having your own personal self-reveal? Can you actually reveal yourself to other people without revealing yourself to yourself? Knowing yourself? Can you do that? And finally, he says, you have to decide who you are and force the world to deal with you, not with its idea of you. And so this weekend, we saw a lot of ideas about Black people. We saw a lot of ideas about who people think we are. The fact that people think that all Black people are criminally, inherently criminal, while literally watching actual criminals pose for their march in their photo op. We're living in, I said the other day, I said, I feel like I'm living in an alternative version of the world that up seems down a lot of days and down seems up because of what I see happening in our country. But the reality is, there's something on the inside of us, the human spirit, that allows us to look at all of what we see and know that that is not who we are. It's not all of who we are. Even what we saw happen this weekend, that's not the majority of Americans. That's just the loud ones. That's just the ones where our society has manipulated things in such a way that they get the loudest platforms, they get the loudest attention, that the platforms that the media now runs on are largely run by people who are pro fascists. And so, because they are, those are the prevailing messages and propaganda that you hear and that you see. It's not that there are more of them, it's that they have the mic. That's it. And when you understand that it's because they have the mic that they appear to be the loudest, you go look for the people who don't have the mic and ground yourself in the reality that there are good people in the world. There are people in the world who have a right sense of mindset about their fellow human beings. There are people in the world who believe that love is the greatest weapon and not subjugation and not humiliation and not oppression. Those people are there, they exist. You just have to look for the people not holding the mic. Look for the people around you that are a little bit quieter. Look for the people around you that are observant. Look for the people around you that demonstrate kindness without being asked or without a camera or without a photo op necessary in order for them to demonstrate it. Those people exist. How do I know? Because I'm in contact with them every single day. Now, some of them are not on social media. So you might have to get out a little bit more to meet those kinds of people. But I encourage you to do it. Why? Because it is worth it. It is worth it. It is worth it. And so I do want to thank you all for your time and for your attention today. We aren't going to have time for a talk back today, but I do want to thank you all for hanging in here, for rocking with us for season 18, for joining us on our new channel, Official Black Table Talk. Um, our Sunday dialogues will continue on the Life Nation KC channel. Our Daring Dialogues are going to move to Official Black Table Talk. So if you have not subscribed to that channel and you want to continue to watch conversations like this and engage with us in these discussions that'll be happening on weekdays, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Our season 19 is going to begin in August. I believe the second week in August we'll be back on that Monday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, provided nothing else changes with our schedule. And if there is a change, we will let you know in advance. But second week in August, the second Monday in August, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time is when we plan to launch season 19. We've been doing this for a decade now, and we have no intention of stopping. We've got to keep the conversation going. We've got to keep the conversation going. So, that being said, I want to thank you for your time and for your attention. I'm going to take a moment to read some of the comments here on our official Black Table Talk page, and then we'll be signing out. Let's see. Leslie says, it's defenseless to try to intimidate the public while wearing masks and showing how armed you are. That's crazy, that's cult, that's whitewashing. It's a poor assumption to say she's safe in a car full of masked, male, admitted racists. Yes. They are also known as incels. Mhm. And yes, conflating, walking on their lips and turning logic inside out is what I was thinking. Yes. So hopefully through this broadcast, you know a little bit more about the Patriot Front, and now you're more armed and equipped to answer questions that you might be getting online about why was this so problematic? Why was this photograph of this black woman so jarring? There were other photographs taken. There's also a photograph of a black man, a singular black man standing by the door in the train. There's another one of a singular white woman seated amongst them. But if you go find that picture of that singular white woman, her face, she has a sort of a smile and a smirk on her face. She knows that she thinks, I'll put it that way, she thinks that she's not in any danger. But if you know proximity crime, you know that people are more likely to experience some form of crime because of proximity to their own ethnicity or ethnic group. So even though she felt very comfortable and safe, proximity crime says otherwise, that she is more likely to be harmed by someone who looks like her than someone who looks like me. All right, another term for you to go look up, proximity crime. So hopefully you got a little bit more information about Patriot Front, who they are, what they have done. So if someone tells you that this was just a little innocent march, it was not, in fact, a little innocent march. What it was designed to do, that I don't really think it did, I think it backfired, but what it was designed to do was try to get people to normalize seeing domestic terrorists in public. But what it has actually done is it's actually galvanized people to make sure that their towns, in their cities, in their states began to crack down on these domestic terrorist groups that are just floating around, flouting the law. Yeah, I think it's done that. I think it's galvanized people to say, we cannot allow this to be normalized. That's what I think it's done. Um, so, yeah, good PR in the moment for them. You know, lots of people, lots of their fellow white nationalists came out and said there's nothing wrong with what they're doing. But when you start digging into who Patriot Front is, you realize they already have a criminal record, and they've already been assaulting people, and they've already been burning and damaging property, that facade goes away. Leslie says, I used to work with one of those militia guys. Every day started with a stupid woman joke, and he used lots of tactics to try to make me quit. That lady is not safe. All right. And so you heard it. Be well, be safe out here. I want to thank you all again for your time and attention. Remember, we have plenty of playlists available, so you can come back to the Life Nation KC page and click on playlists and check out well, we got more than Daring Dialogues, but we've got all of our previous seasons just about there for Daring Dialogues. You can check those out, go back, see all of the books that we've been reading, discussions we've been having, interviews that we've held are all there. So you can binge watch to your heart's delight until we come back with season 19. Remember, light is the most daring opposition to evil. So continue to go out and be light. Take care, everyone. Be well, and most importantly, be light. See you on the other side.